Welcome back to the Mother Tree, guys. Now I know this isn't the normal world that you're used to seeing, because this is actually one of the tutorials that I was talking about. So if you look behind me, you can see this mammoth of a thing. It's called the Smeltery. It's a Tinker's Construct multi-block structure, and I'm going to teach you how to build it, and then maybe eventually you can build your own mammoth Smeltery. So I'm going to teach you how to actually do all this stuff, but it's definitely worth looking at the quest entry that it has for the Smeltery. Teaches you little tips and tricks on where to find free stuff, like in villages and whatever. But if the main thing you want to keep track of is over here on the right hand side, where it says the 64 plus 40 of sand, gravel, and clay, because you're going to need that, especially to make the default size Smeltery. But now if we get on with the tutorial, the first thing that you're actually going to want to make is some of this grout. And this grout is actually smelted into seared bricks over here. But to make the grout, you're going to mix a little bit of clay, a little bit of sand, and a little bit of gravel. And there's two different ways to make it. You can make the easy way, which makes 2 grout, where it's just a clay ball, some sand, and some gravel. Or you can do the more expensive, but in my eyes, worthwhile recipe, where you take a clay block and 4 sand, as well as 4 gravel, and this actually makes 8 grout, rather than the usual 2 from making that over there. I believe it's the same exchange rate, but this seems a lot easier, and you save a lot of inventory space doing it this way. And now you take your grout, you smelt it into what's called a seared brick. And the seared brick is actually what's used to craft the different parts of the smeltery that I'll be showing you. So if we take our seared bricks, and put 4 of them in the crafting grid, like so, you can actually see that it makes the basis of the smeltery structure a seared bricks block. And if you take 8 of them and line the outside of the crafting grid, it makes the most important block, in my opinion, the controller. None of this would work without the controller. And if you take 6 seared bricks and line the left side and the right side, it's actually used to make the smeltery drain, which by itself doesn't do anything, because what you actually need is an upside down triangle of seared bricks to make a seared faucet. And the seared faucet goes on the outside of the smeltery drain on that little hole right there, with the big hole facing inside the smeltery to drain out whatever molten liquid you have stored in there. But by itself right now, even with the seared faucet, there's nowhere to drain it. So you can make these 2 structures over here, a casting table and a casting basin. The casting table is an upside down U in the crafting grid of seared bricks, and the casting basin is a regular U of seared bricks. The casting table is used to make ingots as well as the parts for Tinker's Construct. The casting basin is used to create blocks of whatever you have as molten material inside. So you can create 1 iron block in the basin rather than having to click the seared faucet 9 times in the ingot cast to make 9 iron ingots. So if we come through the door over here, you can see a little setup I have here. This is actually showing that for the smeltery drain, you don't actually have to put it the way that I put it before. You can put it so the little holes on the top or the bottom, and they still work the same. However, what you do have to keep track of is the seared faucets have to be on the horizontal sides of it rather than the vertical top or vertical bottom of the smeltery drain. Because the seared faucets have to have something to drain into, and so the casting basins and the casting tables should actually be underneath the faucets, not the drain itself. And so even over here, you can see that there is an open space for a casting table or casting basin. The faucet doesn't actually hook up to the drain, it's just placed below it, so it does not work. And the same thing for above it, even though there is an open space adjacent to it for a casting table or casting basin. So all of the parts that I've shown you so far, you pretty much need at least 1 of every single one of them. And in the seared bricks case, you will most likely need more. However, the next 3 blocks you actually get a choice for. You can make what's called seared glass, a seared window, or a seared tank. And they all, as you can see, hold the lava which actually powers the smeltery. So it's completely up to preference which one you wish. And as you see, you can see a little bit more through the seared glass than you can through the seared window than you can of the seared tank. And when they're all filled with lava, you can't see through them. So it's all preference up to you and how many seared bricks you have. For the seared glass, you need a plus sign of glass and 4 seared bricks. For the seared window, you actually need the same recipe of seared bricks as the smeltery drain with glass in the middle. And for the seared tank, it's actually the same recipe as the smeltery controller with glass in the middle. So now I think it's worth mentioning how you actually put lava in these things. So if you look over here, you can just right click on the seared tank using a regular lava bucket and it puts it in. Or if you want to have a stackable option, you can actually take tin and make an upside down V with them, and it makes 12 cans. And each can right click and hold a bucket of lava, but they also stack, which you can also use to fill the seared tank, seared windows, and seared glass. One thing to be wary of when using cans, though, as you could have probably seen when I was filling the seared tank, is their one-time use. So you only really want to use them when you're trying to bring mass amounts of lava up to your smeltery, and not just for a single can back and forth. Because for that, I would totally have used a bucket, because the bucket doesn't get destroyed after. So as I said before, it's completely preference on which of the three you actually want to use. And you don't even have to use just one. You can use a multitude of them. But now, if we take all of these blocks that we've made, we'll start making smelteries. So the basis of a smeltery, you can see this little simple one I set up here. There's a layer of blocks that's actually underneath the smeltery for the middle, and then there's a second layer of blocks, or more, that are actually outside the first layer, but above them. And each smeltery at least needs a controller, some seared glass or seared windows or seared tanks, and then the rest of the structure completed. However, without the smeltery drains, you can't actually drain the liquid that you put in or the solids that melt into liquid that you put in. So I have in here, I have 10 ingots of iron, and I have a smeltery drain here. And so if you have the faucets on the side of it, as I showed, you don't have to put the smeltery drain in any particular orientation. You can see the casting table has an ingot cast on it. So if I click this, you can see the molten iron come out, and then it slowly cools, and then it hardens into an iron ingot. But now, if I click the other side, you can see the molten iron coming out, and a lot more is coming out. This is slowly emptying because there was only 10 ingots in it. I have the 1 in my hand, so 9 will make a block. And then, so after this fills, you can see this cools and hardens, and then I have an iron block. And then, to actually put stuff in the smeltery, you click the controller, and you shift click, or just drag and drop, into the smeltery. But now, as you can see, there's only one space, and that's because the smeltery is super tiny. So, if you need more space, or you want to hold more liquid, you need to build something a little bigger. So this is the general size that I recommend. It's a little bit bigger than the basic size that the quest entry actually told you. It's a little bit taller. But as you can see, I already have some molten iron inside. But this I have, you can see, it's a 3x3 inside, and then it's 2 tall, rather than the 1x1 I have over there that's only 1 tall. So this can significantly hold a lot more blocks. And it can also output a lot more liquid all at the same time. So as you can see, the window is burning bright. That means the smeltery is activated. Same for that one over there. So if we take this now, and this isn't a Tinker's Construct tutorial, this is a smeltery tutorial, but to actually output the stuff, you put the respective cast that you want to put in there, and you click on it, and same for the rest, and then all the parts will come out, and they will harden, and so you'll have the pickaxe head, the pickaxe binding, and the pickaxe tool rod. And then if I put them in a tool station or tool forge over here, in the pickaxe, just as a normal Tinker's Construct weapon is made, you can make an iron pickaxe rather than stone or wood. So now I think it's a good time to show you actually how to make these different casts. So if you look over here, there's 2 different types of casts that you can make. There's golden casts and aluminum brass casts. And they both get used the same way, it's just whatever material you feel like making it out of. Gold is a little more expensive, but it's a little bit less involved to actually make the cast, because it's only the second step. However, if you want to take the cheaper option, which most people generally do, you can make aluminum brass casts. And that's made with 3 parts aluminum and 1 part copper, just put in the smeltery to melt down. So you can actually just make aluminum brass instead of having to waste your gold on it, because gold is used for so many things in different mods. But once you have your ingots, or your materials, you put them in the smeltery, and they melt down. And then what you want to do, if you look at this little example I set up with a part builder over here, what you do is you make the part that you want to make. So let's say if we wanted to make this pickaxe head cast. You make the stone pickaxe head or wooden pickaxe head in your regular part builder, as you probably know by now. You take it, and then you bring it over to a casting table, and you plop it down in the casting table. You make sure you have your gold, your aluminum brass inside, and you click the seared faucet, and it comes in and it actually fills it up, and then you take out the head, and then you have the cast. And then you can use that cast to make the different parts. And same for ingots. You can take the ingot, fill it up, have it cool, and then take the ingot out, and now you have an ingot cast, which you can use to make different types of stuff. And if you want to empty your smeltery of whatever's left over, what you can actually do is pick up your cast and make what's called a blank cast, which has no form whatsoever, and then if you wanted to use it again, you can actually put it back in the smeltery. You can also make ingots back out of it, so you can get your aluminum brass ingots back, or your gold back, and store them that way, which you can also put back in the smeltery. It is worth noting, however, you cannot make parts out of gold or aluminum brass because they're actually used to make the casts. So now if we come back over here, I will get into the logistics of how big you can make these things. So as you see over here, this one looks pretty big, but the smeltery window is not on. Now why is that? That is because the actual smeltery can only have a 7x7 interior as this. And you can see over here, it's actually 8x7. They can be any other way. So if I go like this now, and I line this side with seared bricks, the smeltery doesn't recognize these anymore. It recognizes the rest of it. So if we come back over here, you can actually see that the smeltery window turned on. So this would be ready to use. And if I do this again, I can make it even smaller to show you that it doesn't have to be a square. It works as a rectangle. Now this would be a really odd smeltery to have in your base, but it's possible. And now, for the last logistics, is how tall can you make them? As you saw from the intro, they can go up to the build limit. So that's it for the sizes. Now one or two other logistics to cover is what happens if you break a block. So if I break this outside, oh no, all the stuff is gone. However, if you put the block back, you can see it all comes back. The one thing to watch out for is if you break the controller. If I break this and put it back, the smeltery is now empty. So there is no more manilin in there, and there is nothing inside the GUI of the smeltery. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was very informative, and I hope I answered all of the questions that you had about building smelteries. But until then, this is Avatar One Dude, signing off. Welcome back to the Mother Tree, guys. Now, the freaking, what? The, jump off the freaking smeltery? Alright. Get ready, my pets. Go, chickens, go!